Hello everyone, I hope you guys had a great weekend. This is going to be our last full week of instruction, and then next week we're going to give some partial work and some lessons for you guys, but this is going to be the last full week, so keep working hard. We're so proud of those of you who are, and we are so thankful for you, so thank you guys so much. Today we're going to do, these are the follow-up questions. Today we're going to work on box and whisker plots, so we're going to talk about, so make sure you write down the date, box and whisker notes on this side. We're going to talk about a lot of the same stuff that we talked about last week and use the same types of tools in our calculator. So make sure you have your calculator today. It's going to be very helpful. But today we're focusing solely on box and whisker plots. All right, and again, I have this template in your notes, or I'm sorry, under your documents in WITS for those of you who have Miss Specht or myself, Miss May. If you want to print that, totally fine. If you can't or don't want to and want to write everything down, that is also completely fine. There's going to be one long question at the bottom here that if you do not have a printer, you don't have to write out all of this. Just make sure you follow along and answer the question. This is more of just I wanted to expose you guys to something that the Regents would ask you in regards to box and whiskers. So don't worry so much about writing everything if I don't want to kill you guys here. Okay, so box and whisker notes. We're going to make a box and whisker for the numbers given below, and these are representing quiz grades. So here are the numbers. Notice that they're not in order. That is not a big deal because we have our calculator. If we didn't and we had to do it the long way, then the first step would be to put them in order. But since our calculator is going to do it for us, we don't have to do that. So just like last week, you're going to hit the stat button and then enter for edit. Clear out anything that is in there. So clear, enter. If you have an L2, clear, enter. And then just start entering the data. So 3, 7, 8. Make sure you enter it correctly. Obviously, if you do not, that will cause some major problems. 18 and 14. Let's make sure. I always like to double check because it's a very easy mistake to make. Okay, so here are my numbers. Then to make a box and whisker plot, I should probably have explained this, you need something called the 5-number summary. Okay, and what that is, sometimes I think you guys learned these in 6th grade, and some 6th grade teachers called them the Fab 5, whatever you want to call them, doesn't really matter. You need the minimum, you need your Q1, you need your median. I'm going to write out the whole thing, median. You need your Q3 and your max. Those are the 5 numbers that need to be represented in a box and whisker. Okay, and in order to find those, our calculator will do it for us by just hitting the stat. After you put them in, stat, over to calculate. One variation stat, you just have to hit enter. Since I just have a regular list, no frequency, you just need your L1 for the list spot, and then just enter, enter, enter. And then as you know, we talked about the mean last week. That's the number of data points. These are the 5 numbers you need for a box and whisker. Okay, so this is what I need to record. So my minimum value is 3. My Q1 is 7. Median is 13. Q3 is 15. And your max is 21. Now, before I forget, I want to also label your Q1 may also be called your lower quartile. I'm just going to do lower Q for now. And your Q3 could be called your upper quartile. Those are interchangeable. I think the IXL for this week calls them lower and upper. So you just need to know what that mean the same thing as Q1 and Q3. Okay. So here is the most common mistake for a box and whisker. We have our number line here, and we have to scale it out. We have to figure out what scale we're going to use to make this box and whisker and represent all these data points. Our lowest is 3, our highest is 21. Here's the most common mistake students make. I'm going to show you on another sheet of paper. They have their scale, draw 5 lines, and they say, okay, well, let's see, my minimum's 3, my Q1's 7, 13, 15, 21, and they just go 3, 7, 13, 15, 21. Okay, there's a problem with that because these are not scaled in the same amount. So this jumps by 4, then that one jumps by 6, then this one by 2. You need them to scale in order for this box and whisker to represent the data and for you to be able to look at it and tell where the data points lie. If I draw every box and whisker like this, it's all going to look the same, right? They're all going to be universal. That's not what we want. Okay, so that's a no-no. Goodbye. What we do need to do is when you go ahead and scale this, you need to pay attention to two numbers, the min and the max, because we need it obviously to include 3 and go all the way up to 21. I already thought about this scale, so I had a minute ahead of you guys to do that. And if I jump, starting at 0, if I go all the way up to, I think count by 2s, it takes me to 24. And you don't always have to start at 0. Just so happens that my number is pretty low, so I'm going to. So I'm going to do 0, 2, 4, I don't count by 2s. 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 16, 18, 20, 22, 24. Okay, you just got to make sure that it includes obviously your min and max and that you scaled the same way each time. I didn't jump by anything but 2s. Okay, and then when you go to make a box and whisker, you plot these 5 points above where the line is on the number line. So 3 would be in between 2 and 4. I'm going to plot my point there. Just plot points for right now. My Q1 or my lower quartile is 7, so that's in between 6 and 8. My median is 13. Oh my gosh, these are all odd numbers. My upper quartile or Q3 is 15, so I'll put that one here. And my maximum is 21. Okay, now to do a box and whisker, what I like to tell my students is the box part is your quartile 1, median, and quartile 3. So draw a line in your quartile 1, your median, and your quartile 3 and create your box. And then your whiskers go out to your maximum point and your minimum point like that. That is a box and whisker. That should look familiar to you guys. This is not the first time you're seeing these. A couple of things that I want you to label on this box and whisker. These are important things to note. First of all, I'm going to actually label these just so that you guys can see everything. This is your minimum. This is your Q1 or your lower quartile. This is your median. This is your Q3, or your upper quartile. And this right here is your max point, maximum. What a box and whisker does is it breaks up the data into 4 equal sections. So there's the same number of data points or quiz grades in between your min right here and your Q1. There's the same number of data points in between your Q1 and your median. Even though this looks smaller over here, there's still the same number of data points in between 13 and 15, or your median and your Q3, and there's the same number of data points in between your Q3 and your maximum. If I were to list out all these numbers and show you where they actually fall, let's say there would be two quiz grades in here, 2 in here, 2 in here, and 2 in here. I think it's actually more than 2, but maybe 3 each one. But it just goes to show that these separate the data into 4 equal sections. So what that means, and this is super important for you to realize, is that 25% of the data, or 1/4 of it, since I said there are 4 equal sections, 1/4 of the data lies between the minimum and your Q1. So this is where 25% of your data lies. Okay, between your Q1 and your median is another 25%. Between your median and your Q3 is another 25%. And between your Q3 and your maximum is another 25%. Okay? People like to ask a lot of questions about the percentages that fall within a box and whisker plot. So if I were to ask you, okay, how many people scored below the median's 13. Below a 13, what's the percent? Well, 25 plus 25, 50% of them scored below a 13, which should make sense because it's the middle point. So half of the data is that way, half of it's that way. If I were to ask you how many people scored between a 15 and a 21, so that's between your Q3 and your max, well, it's just the 25%. If I were to ask how many people scored above a 7, right here, that's 3 of the 25, so 75% scored above a 27. I'm sorry, 7. Oh my gosh, 7. So that's where you get percentiles. A lot of data gets broken up like this into 25%, so percentiles. And so that's another question they might ask you. So be careful with those and make sure you understand that. The only other thing I wanted to say while I have you all here, before your IXL tomorrow, because I know you won't be correcting your follow-up questions till after, sometimes there's an outlier. Let's say somebody scored like a, I don't even know, an outlier could be like a 50. Hopefully that wouldn't be considered an outlier because hopefully the test isn't out of anything more than that. But your IXL is going to show it with a little star. That's just something IXL does. If there's an outlier, you'll see it as a star, and they don't actually include it in the box and whisker. Sometimes people do, sometimes they don't, but IXL does not, so I wanted you to all just see that. Okay, so let's answer some questions given our box and whisker. What is the minimum value? Now, obviously you have it all written here, but let's use the box and whisker plot to answer these questions. So let's try not to cheat, and usually you just wouldn't have that there. But anyways, what is the minimum value? So I'm looking at the lowest dot, the minimum value going down, that's going to be 3. Different color. What is the max? So it's my highest point up here, go down 21. What is the interquartile range? So that's going to be your Q3 minus your Q1. So that's going to be 15 minus Q1 was 7, and that equals 8. So our interquartile range is 8. What is the range? So the range is going to be your max minus your min. So the max is 21 minus the minimum point is 3. So that's going to be 18 is my range of the data. And then what's the median? The median is going to be that middle point right there, so 13. Okay, now here are some questions that ask for the percentages. So what percent of students scored between a 3 and a 7? So let's see, 3 is here, 7 is here. So what percent scored between 3 and a 7? That's 25% of the data. Sorry, you can't really see that. So 25%. What percent of students scored higher than a 7? So now I'm looking at 7 again. So 7's here. Everything higher than a 7 would be this 25, that 25, and that 25. So altogether, 75%. And then what percent of students scored between a 3 and a 21? So 3 is down here. 21 is up here. That's the entire box and whisker plot. So it's all the 25s added up, or all of the data would be 100% of the data. Okay, so those are the types of questions that you should be looking to answer, either in the follow-up questions or on IXL. And then this question, feel free to pause it just to get a look at it. I'm going to talk you through a lot of it, but you, again, do not need to write out this whole thing if you are manually writing everything. But it says, Corinne is planning a beach vacation in July and is analyzing the daily high temperatures for her potential destination. She would like to choose a destination with a high median temperature and a small interquartile range. She constructed a box and whisker plot shown in the diagram below. So I'm sure this is what all you guys do before you go on vacation, is make box and whiskers. I know I do it for every vacation I go on, just to see the temperatures. Just kidding. I don't. You probably are all rolling your eyes over there. Anyways, so she made, for the 4 different destinations that she's going, box and whisker plots. She also has a scale down here that must be for all of these. Notice the scale. A couple things you always want to pay attention to is what is the scale going up by. This is going up by 5s, and the scales are the same. So that's important to note. And then it says, which destination has a median temperature above 80, and then the smallest interquartile range. Okay, let's start with median temperature above 80. So the median in a box and whisker, if you pay attention to ours, is always in the middle of the box. That's going to be your median. So I'm going to look at all the medians. This median for Ocean Beach, and it's kind of hard because they have the scale all the way down here. But the median here, if I draw the line down, looks like it's below 80. So Ocean Beach is out. Bye. Whispering Palms, that has a median above 80, so that's okay. Serene Shores, if I draw this line down, that looks to be below 80, so goodbye. And Pelican Beach is, the median appears to be 85, so that one's okay. So we've narrowed it down to either Whispering Palms or Pelican Beach. Ocean Beach is out. Serene Shores is out. We now need to figure out which one has the smallest interquartile range. So by looking at this, you should be able to tell. Okay, your interquartile range, I'm going to show you back up at ours, is your Q3 minus your Q1. So it's your box part, okay? That's your interquartile range. They want to know which one has the smallest. So if I'm looking at the box section only, which box is the smallest? You have to make sure that the scales are the same, which they are. But which box is the smallest? It would be Pelican Beach. Okay, that must have a smaller interquartile range. Let's actually do the math, but I'm just going to tell you that just by looking, you should be able to see. This appears to be, let's say that's an 87 for your Q3, minus, let's say that's 83. That interquartile range is 4. If I were to do Whispering Palms, that looks like it's 94. Q minus 84, that's 10. So obviously Pelican Beach has the smaller interquartile range. But again, just by looking, you should be able to see that. You don't actually have to do the math here, okay? All right, so that's it for Box and Whisker. I'm gonna show you guys what your follow-up questions are gonna be. Feel free to pause and write this down. This I do want you guys writing down if you don't have a printer. It's not too much. So you're gonna make your own Box and Whisker using these numbers. They're not in order, but you can put them all in your calculator. Make sure you scale it accordingly, okay? Notice how the smallest number here is 22. So you don't have to start at 0. You can start at 20. You could even start at 22 as long as you go up by the same amount. So if you go up by 2s, I should see 2s the whole way, or 3s, or 5s, and your highest number is 80, so you do have to fit a lot in there. So just be careful, okay? The scale can be the trickiest part, but I want you guys trying to figure it out for yourself. Just make sure you go up by the same amount. And write your 5-number summary here. Your min, Q1, median, Q3, and max. And then from your Box and Whisker, you're going to answer these questions. And then at the bottom here, so make sure you pause if you haven't written this down because I'm going to move. At the bottom is question 2. This I actually made a Box and Whisker, so I do want you copying it down, so just be careful. This represents minutes a day a student watches TV, and notice how I'm going up by 5s. It's always important to see what the scale is, okay? This one's going up by 5s. And they ask questions, what is the median? What is the lower quartile? So you actually have to go to the Box and Whisker and figure out the number, okay? I want the numbers written here. What is the percent of data that falls between 25 and 60? Oh, sorry, I skipped. What's the minimum? They want percent, so you have to think about, okay, how much of the data falls here? 25, 50, 75, 100. And then what percent of the data falls between 40 and 45? Okay, when you're done with that, you can turn it in. There will be one more lesson this week on a video and then a couple of IXLs. All right, thanks again, guys, for watching. Mail us with any questions that you have as always, and we will hopefully get back to you as soon as possible. Goodbye.